Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Negishi, along with my co-host, the associate editor of sports blog Awful Announcing. It is Ken Fang. And Ken, good evening. Thanks for joining us once again. NFL Week 7 is still going on right now. Some of the games are starting to wind down or already put out of his misery of sorts. I'm talking about the Cowboys doubling up on the Washington Commanders 44-22 in the fourth quarter. So they just kind of switched off to Packers and the Cardinals, which is a 3-point game as we speak right now. So
yeah, and Denver took the lead on the Giants. Bo Nix scored a touchdown. So Denver, which was behind at one point, 13-0 to the Giants, have now come back and now lead 30-26 over the Giants. A big comeback if they're able to
hold on to the lead.
Yeah, if they're able to hold on, and we'll see. But that the big comeback for Denver against the Giants, who were really having with Jackson Dart and Scatterboo, they were hoping for big things. But today, the give credit to Denver for not giving up. But today was a really bad day in football, Stephen. Not a very good day. Slate of games started in London. The Rams beat up the Jaguars. Jaguars just like a paper tiger. And then
I think they peaked against the Chiefs on Monday night a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So, and not only that, we went through some really bad games in the 1 o'clock hour and 1 o'clock window. The only game that was close was Minnesota and Philadelphia, which were won by the Eagles. But we'll go over that. But man, it was.
Let's talk about our teams. I think it's a rarity that your team and my team both won on the same week, perhaps. So let's start with your Browns. I think the urinating tree would call this a tank ball of epic proportion. Stefanski and the Browns blasted the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel probably may have played his last game as a Dolphins head coach. Yeah. I tweeted that whoever lost this game would lose their job, whether it's Stefanski or McDaniel. And I think the results speaks for itself. I've been following both Cleveland radio stations, 92.3 The Fan and 850 ESPN Cleveland. And leading up to this game was a lot of negativities surrounding the Browns, Stefanski's job, Dylan Gabriel unable to do anything offensively, inserting, start Shadir Sanders, blah, 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 trade rumors, and so forth. Well, at least for 1 week, and you can probably put that to rest. But give me your overall thoughts on today's game. I know it wasn't a very, very less than ideal conditions all over the Midwest. Even here in Michigan, it was rainy all afternoon. Chicago, it was rainy till the noon, and even in Cleveland, I saw a lot of empty seats, obviously because of the weather and a lack of fans showing their frustration and everything. So,
well. I as much as I enjoyed the win, I have to think that this is more of how bad the Miami Dolphins are than rather how. I mean, we know that Cleveland's not a good team. By the way, Green Bay just scored to take the lead over Arizona. Yeah, so it looks like Jacobs just scored from the 1 yard line, and they have now taken the lead late over the Cardinals, who took the lead on the Packers just a few minutes ago. So now the Packers lead 26-23 pending the extra point. Giants are trying to drive right now on the Broncos. Jackson Dart goes back and they just called something. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, I don't think it was more the Cleveland Browns being good. It's just being the Dolphins being bad. Tua Tagovailoa, 3 interceptions, including 1 from the end zone, which led to a score. It wasn't a pick six. But he looks terrible out there. And the receivers, of course, you don't have Tyreek Hill, who got injured. This is just one of the worst performances, one of the worst teams I've ever seen, Stephen. I mean, you've got a bunch of you've got I mean, they're not winless. The Miami Dolphins aren't winless, but they play like a winless team. Cleveland their defense just they just really teed off on Tua. They had no attack. There was no offense whatsoever. Mike McDaniel was asked if he has ever if he's concerned about his job security. He says he's not thinking about it. Well, he should. Okay. I'm surprised that he was allowed to get on the plane to go back to South Florida after leaving Cleveland today. I'm surprised. If I'm Stephen Ross, I just say here's a voucher to go to Hertz Rent a Car. Here, just rent a car and just drive back because you're not allowed to go on the plane. That was it was a really poor coaching performance. I know Mike McDaniel has had some success in the past, but I felt bad for the Miami Dolphin fans. As much as I'm happy from the win, I know that this isn't the Green Bay Packers that who are the only other victory that the Browns had earlier this season. This is not a good team. The Browns should have won this game. I called this Super Bowl 1. They have Super Bowl 2 coming up in Week 10 if the Jets continue their horrific performance, and they had a very bad performance today against Carolina too. But we're not there yet. We're not going to talk about them yet. But if Week 10 comes about and both these teams have losing records, it's going to be Super Bowl 2 for the Cleveland Browns. I'll take the win. I'm not unhappy over it. Of course, I just know that.
Of course not.
Of course, but you know that this is a team you should beat. It's a team that they should have beaten 31-6. But I just know that I'm not optimistic that this is going to lead to bigger success because the type of opponent it was, and they're down and out. It's a team they should have beaten. But I don't think that this is going to lead to bigger success. If it does, it's great. But Dylan Gabriel, he looked pretty decent out there. They had a good running attack, but again, Tua Tagovailoa helped out a lot by throwing some really picks out there, and he had 3 of them today.
That pick 6 on the very first pick of the second to start the second half was a completely killer. It really just took the life out of the Dolphins. Didn't know who he was throwing to. And it just made really nothing going. And the miserable weather certainly didn't help.
No, but I'll have to be honest with you. I don't think that I'll be surprised if we don't hear some alert from Adam Schefter tomorrow morning or sometime midday that Mike McDaniel's been let go because
even tonight too. Yeah, even tonight.
Yeah. I would think it's going to happen tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon, or tomorrow morning. I can't see this continuing. Like I said, McDaniel, he brought them to success. He's had them going to the playoffs against Kansas City, but since then, there's been Miami has regressed and stepped. It's more than 2 steps backwards. It's been like 30 steps. So.
Right. Even Tua with that awkward press conference criticizing
last week
for the after the Chargers game about lack of attendance in the team meetings and so forth, and then having to retract that the very next day. So things are just kind of really, really weird out down in Miami, and I think Mike McDaniel will probably be gone, like you said, by tomorrow for sure. Just let it play out. And in the meantime, McDaniel can redeem himself. He's a very good offensive coordinator. He's a very good offensive mind. Somebody will probably hire him, maybe next year to be an OC wherever the job becomes available. Mm-hmm. I know McDaniel had some ties or even had the Cleveland job. But he was there, right? QB coach or whatever, right?
He was there in Cleveland.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I think if the Browns do hire someone, it wouldn't shock me if Mike McDaniel gets a head coaching job interview, or probably more than likely he'll probably get a maybe an OC job first of all to kind of rehab his image. And if he can do wonders in Cleveland with a new quarterback, next year in 2020. I think that might be a best avenue for Mike McDaniel to, kind of remove the stench off of his time in Miami and then move on to hopefully, newer gig in the NFL and moving forward. Now, meanwhile, my Chicago Bears played Monday night and then Sunday. And unlike week one, we saw a real good results, thankfully. And, Monday night, it was a nail biter between the Bears and the Commanders on Monday night. It was kind of overshadowed by Troy Aikman's slight of sorts towards Caleb Williams. Pretty much entire broadcast. I think the fans in Chicago were pretty much angry about which kind of stems from. The production meeting between Caleb Williams and Troy Aikman did not happen because Caleb was so busy, focusing on the game, and by the time he reached out to, Troy Aikman, Aikman wasn't available, or at least he was so pissed that he didn't want to see him or something. But nonetheless, I'm just so happy that after a year ago where I had to witness the Hail Mary that ruined my season, the Bears season. At least this time, the Bears were able to, exercise that demon with Jake Moody, of all people, who had struggled with San Francisco, was released after week one. Mm-hmm. And then it kicked, how many field goals was that? 4 field goals. Four field goals. Or was it 3? I'm trying to remember. So that's 3. It was 3, something like that. 4 field goals. Either way, thank God for Jake Moody because, he saved the Chicago Bears and perhaps even his own NFL career on Monday night. And meanwhile, Washington is getting their butt kicked in Dallas today. Jalen Daniels suffered a knee injury again, which sidelined him for a couple of weeks before he ultimately returned against, Chicago. And I got to tell you right now, people in Washington are kind of, I don't want to say freaking out, but they're not as good as last year. When you kind of go on the amazing run after that Hail Mary, and then basically you just kind of go on that magical carpet ride of sorts, if you think about it. And then now the schedule suddenly becomes a lot more difficult. By the way, I'm looking on the Red Zone or a local Fox News, Fox channel right now. The Packers survive 4th and 10. Looks like a turnover on downs, 27-23 Packers. It's funny because the Packers had their flight delay for about 5 hours stuck in the tarmac, I think in Green Bay or Milwaukee, wherever they were trying to leave. And it was so funny. And, they struggled all day today, trailing Cardinals like half of the time. And, unfortunately, Packers are, 4-1-1 now. Looks like maybe Jonathan Gannon's job might be on the line as well, Probably Mike McDaniel will probably get axed first before, but Jonathan Gannon's seat just got hot now, of course, ever since that Tennessee debacle a couple of weeks ago where he punched a running back who dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line. Damn you, Packers. So anyway, let's see. So, Washington's kind of like gotten a little bit older. They added some veterans on both sides of the ball, Deebo Samuel and everybody. It hasn't really worked out yet to their favor so far. And now if, Jaden Daniels is out for maybe another couple of weeks, does the Commanders, have what it takes to make another run? Or, with the Eagles winning today, is the Eagles again back in the driver's seat and now just going to run away with the division? We're going to find out pretty soon. And then today, in horrific weather conditions, the Chicago Bears managed to squeak out an ugly 26-14 win over the New Orleans Saints. I'm really happy that the Bears, just like the Monday night game, they were able to lean on running the football because Caleb Williams, passing wise, was not good, and he even admitted he was not good. Post game, post game press conference, he was just very skittish, just running all over the field, trying to find a receiver. And there was one play in the first quarter where he threw where he was locked into Roman Dunze and threw the ball, picked off by Saints Quincy Riley. Thankfully, Spencer Rattler was even worse, thanks to the Bears' defense. So the Bears manages to win ugly. They had to rely on run game and defense, which was not their strength coming into the season. But Ben Johnson deserves tremendous credit. Coming off a bye. He never threw DeAndre Swift under the bus. He said that it's not his fault. And the last two games, the Bears' run game has suddenly found life, and it could not have come at a better time because Caleb Williams did not look good at all today. As a Bears fan, I will have to deal with this type of situations, where Caleb looks bad. We're going to have to rely on the defense and the run game. We the Bears fans are so used to seeing it in the past, and I get it. It's 2025. You just want to see your quarterback do, just decent. You know what I mean? But Caleb is still not there, and I think the best analogy would be like, Josh Allen is probably in his second year. His first year was just completely wild and just really, really bad. And then second year, he finally hit the stride and helped take Buffalo to a wild card. And I'm just hoping that that's the trajectory that Caleb will get to in his second year. And, he's still learning the cadence. It's gotten better, but, Ben Johnson is still not happy with the offense, and rightfully so, because the defense is doing their job with 4 turnovers today. And we only got like half of the points out of it, like 13 points out of 4 turnovers, which is not very good. So, you can't always rely on turnovers to, get the job done. The Bears offense has to do their part moving forward. And next week's game against Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, that's going to be very, very scary because we assume that Lamar Jackson will be back.
He's going to be back next week. Yeah.
Right. And Ravens were off a bye this week. So yes. And, Derrick Henry will also pose a big challenge on the Bears defense when it comes to stopping the run too. They've done a great job the last 2 games. This guy, Derrick Henry, even with the fumble problems this year, it's still a big load to bring him down. So I'm very, very excited to see how the Bears offense and defense responds, because every week is completely different. One week, awesome. And then the next week you all look terrible, and then vice versa. So that it's a parity league now more so than ever. Oh my goodness! The Giants just scored a touchdown, and
they scored a touchdown. They scored it. Jackson Dart got in. I was trying to tell you that, Stephen, but you were on the talk.
I'm so sorry there. Okay,
yeah,
but let's finish this one, because this is the only game that's left on the slate now before the Sunday night game.
Yeah, the Broncos are trying to. Bo Nix is trying to drive this, bring his. They're right now around midfield, about the 3-yard line of the Giants. They're trying to get one more play. They're about 18 seconds left. They're trying to drive to get into field goal territory, and a pass and they get it passed down to the 30-yard line. Now they've got to run. They've got to rush. There's like 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 6 seconds. They've got to spike it. They do. They get to the 20-yard line. Now a chance to win the game with a field goal. So interesting to see how yeah. So
okay. I'm so behind on my
here in Denver. So go ahead quickly. I'll keep an eye on the field goal attempt here.
No. Okay, that's fine. But I tell you what, the Giants have found life under Jackson Dart, and listen, Brian Daboll's head coaching career rides on this one.
And, I don't think he does. I think he still stays around.
I know. But what we saw on Thursday night a couple of weeks ago, when he tries to go into the blue tent and tries to pressure the medical doctor from trying to bring Jackson Dart back into the game.
Denver wins.
Oh, Denver won. Damn it.
33-32 over the Giants.
Oh my goodness, really? Wow. Oh man, New York fans are going to be really, really angry tomorrow. With the Jets now, what, 0-6, 0-7? Okay, they're now 0-7, and now the Giants are what, 2-4?
5, but right
2
now,
and 5. Okay,
but they had a good effort today. They should have won this game, to be honest with you. They really should have won this game.
They should have won, yes.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing it on my feed right now. This is going to be very much of a chip shot. Yep. And it's good.
Yeah, it was good. That was, a great job by Bo Nix to get the team 2 passes. They got to about the 35-yard line on the kickoff return, and then passes by Bo Nix to midfield and then to the 20-yard line. Sean Payton has his quarterback of the future, so he's really happy about this. But as far as Brian Daniel, he threw his headset down and he threw his hat down. Not happy about the effort.
Sure.
I think the Giants have a lot of soul searching. At least they had a chance to win. Jackson Dart and Scalaboo.
They have life. They have life more than the Jets. That's what
they do. Absolutely.
At least they can say. But Jackson Dart threw a very costly interception just before, maybe in the fourth quarter. That led to a touchdown for Denver to get the lead before Giants score, and then before Denver kicked the game-winning field goal there. So, Jackson Dart will likely to, continue to dazzle the Giants. But I got to tell you, if you're a rookie, you're going to have to learn to live with these growing pains if you're Giants fans. But at least compared to the being a Jets fan, I think they can at least live with it, because they're going to give you so much, exciting plays. But like you saw on the interceptions, you're going to have to live with those stuff as well. All right. Looking at the other games today, the Chiefs blanked the Raiders. Boy, I got to tell you, Raiders are in a rough position right now. Looks as though maybe Pete Carroll is close to being one and done at this point.
I don't think so. I think he's got to. I think the Raiders know that this is going to be a tough one, but I don't know why they decided to go with Geno Smith. Smith is, I know he did a great job in Seattle.
Their win over, and then their win over Tennessee last week too. So
but I still, Las Vegas. I know it's a big rivalry game against the Chiefs, and they usually do well against the Chiefs, but there was no effort today. And, the reports of the Kansas City Chiefs demise are greatly exaggerated. 3 out of 4 games that they won, and they lost the game against Jacksonville. I have to think that was more of an aberration now, Steven. This is a team that looks like a lot better. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they were going back and forth like the old days.
They got Rashee Rice finally back from that stupid car crash he was involved last year, which he has been, like pretty much on hiatus for well over a year. So
and the running attack was good, and Hollywood Brown got a pass today. So I have to say, anybody who's thinking the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty is done, you have to stand corrected right now, because they're are they elite in the AFC? Not yet, I don't think, but I'm going to have to say that this is one of those. Kansas City still has to be dealt with, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them in the AFC Championship again.
Right, until they're officially knocked out, then that's they're still there.
Exactly.
Although, they have lost their fair share of games that already, this year, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Jacksonville. So they're, 3 losses already. So they cannot afford to slip up any further if they want to, maintain their top 2, at least top 2 seeds in the AFC, especially with the Buffalo slipping away a little bit the last 2 weeks. Their Buffalo's off this week. So let's see what Josh Allen and company can do next week when they get back. And, hopefully they can get back on track next week there as well. So let's see. Brian Callahan got fired by Tennessee. I got to tell you, that job looked like it was just a terrible mismatch for, Brian Callahan, the son of legendary offensive line coach and former Raiders head coach, Bill Callahan, who, by the way, ironically, was also on his staff as an offensive line coach. And then he ended up packing his stuff and left the Tennessee Titans organization as well. The Titans job has been kind of not the job itself, but, the Titan has been on a steady decline and just been really, really declining ever since they lost to the Bengals in the AFC divisional playoffs in 2021. I wrote an article on Fansided back when, the Mike Vrabel versus John Robinson power struggle. The owner, Amy Adams Strunk, took side of, I think, the general manager because she didn't like Vrabel's brash personality.
Right.
And it really, really costed them. They've gone through Ray Carthon, the GM, who came from the San Francisco 49ers, lasted less than a year. They hired, Bryce Callahan, who was actually an OC in Cincinnati, but, because Zach Taylor's the one calling plays, he's basically a OC by title and really didn't have much of an experience. That backfired, of course. They drafted Cam Ward, and now basically you wasted 7 games with Callahan as your coach, and now now you're going to start over in a job that's not exactly all that appealing, even with the new stadium coming up in a couple of years. So that's an organization that has to have a serious reflection, and it's kind of like, look at yourself in the mirror. What organization do you want to be? Are you able to hire a competent coach, even if it's like Mike Vrabel and, with a strong personality? Are you an owner or team president? Are you able to handle that? Because as a Bears fan, I've seen my fair share of bad coaches, stay on and then, drafted a quarterback and then only to be fired the next year, and, just toxic, terrible connection there. So I'm very curious to see who the Titans are able to land as a head coach.
And Drake May looked really good today. He continues to look fantastic. Here's a star in the making, Steven, second-year quarterback. Under Mike Vrabel now and Josh McDaniels, it seems like the Patriots, I hate to say this, but it looks like they stabilized. This is a franchise that is now on an upward trajectory. They're in first place in the AFC East. And, with things going their way and with a favorable schedule, I wouldn't be surprised in Week 10 to see them in a very, very good position here when they start going back into the meat of their AFC East schedule again. So, here's a team. I don't think there were very low expectations, especially when the first part of the season began, Steven. They didn't look very good. But now here's a team that looks like on cruise control. And Drake May and, Rashondra Stevenson looking very good. A good balanced attack. A couple of, touchdown passes for Drake May. And I'll be honest with you. I hate to say this, but New England Patriots fans have reason to crow. And up, I think it's 4-2 now in the AFC East. They have a great opportunity.
5-2 either way,
they have a great opportunity to control this division.
Absolutely, it's not the Bill Belichick New England Patriots, but if New England somehow gets better, even with a blip off, the final year of Belichick and the one bad year of Gerard Mayo, I think it's well worth it for New England fans to be insufferable once again, when they start to, win games again.
It's really bad here. It's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad.
All right. Let's move on. Let's see. The Dodgers swept the Milwaukee Brewers. Was it Friday, right? 4-0, 4-0.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to. What a great performance by Shohei Ohtani. 10 strikeouts. I think it was 5 shutout innings, Steven. 3 home runs.
Oh, he went 6. But I think he
shutout.
He walked and a hit in the top of the 7th. So Dave Roberts pulled him out. So
yeah, I mean 3. He started the first inning with striking out the side after a leadoff walk. And then he helped himself with a leadoff home run in the bottom of the first. And then I think it's one of the greatest performances probably the greatest performance we've ever seen. And this is go back over 100 years in baseball, Steven. I don't think that it was just amazing just to see that. And his second home run, which went 469 feet over the roof in the pavilion in Dodger Stadium. I've been there a couple of times. That is a great experience to be in, but to hit it that far, as a matter of fact, what's interesting, Kyle Schwarber hit it a little bit farther just a week before in the National League Division Series, but then Ohtani said, okay, hold my beer, I'm going to hit it in the same place. So he'll, like Schwarber has a plaque there right now. I'm sure during the World Series that plaque will be unveiled for the 469 feet that Ohtani hit that, and then he hit a third home run a couple of innings later. Reggie Jackson, I remember, hit 3 home runs in Game 6 of the 1977 World Series at Yankee Stadium to clinch that World Series against, ironically, the Dodgers in 1977. But here he is. We've never seen a pitcher or a player clinch a series-clinching game in the postseason and then also hit 3 home runs. That's never. I mean, Jason Stark in The Athletic wrote a very great article about it. It was fantastic to watch. But as far as the Dodgers buying championships, I don't think it's a good thing because, especially as we go into a lockout situation in a couple of years, I think they are ruining. To be honest with you, I do think they are ruining baseball. It's kind of like when the Yankees were buying championship. So, it is. I know. It was great to see the Milwaukee Brewers with their low payroll going as far as they could. But, if the Dodgers continuously have all this money and continue to buy championships, it's not good for the sport.
Sorry, Ken. Let me plug my laptop there. I apologize. It was dangerously low, and I completely did not recognize it. Look, I get what you're saying. And we had this discussion before a while ago about maybe the Dodgers are ruining baseball. And this conversation has come up again, especially on the heels of, Shohei Ohtani having, like you said, one of the greatest performance in the playoff history. But, in all fairness, though, like you said, when the Yankees were the evil empire back in the, the 90s and sorts, this was never brought up, even though I'm sure this was.
It was.
But nothing happened. So now, why is it that the Dodgers are, all of a sudden, I'm trying to at least play the devil's advocate here. Why are the Dodgers all of a sudden being targeted by many, many people and, facing the wrath that they are ruining baseball? Listen, at least they are, doing well within the rules to put on a winning product.
It is.
And then the problem, in my opinion, and I think you will agree with me on this, Ken, is that baseball right now has terrible, terrible owners who are not committed to winning. And I can say that as a Chicago sports fan, both the Cubs and the White Sox have owners who will settle for mediocrity any means necessary. And Jerry Reinsdorf has admitted, since he owns both the Bulls and the White Sox, 2 mediocre, down rotten organizations that has, seen their championship years way back, and then they would just basically settle for mediocrity. In this case, the Bulls just, settle to, get into the play-in tournament, not just winning the championship. And same goes with the White Sox. And the Cubs have the same problem now because, the amount of money that they earn and then the amount of money they're investing, and they're in the lower part of the, the out of the 30 teams right now. So they're not spending. If the big owner teams, even the Yankees themselves, listening to Brian Cashman at his end of the year press conference, he didn't seem as though they don't, he and the Steinbrenners, Hal Steinbrenner, doesn't really seem to have this urge or urgency to, win championships. And I don't want that, the Dodgers to be like, crapped on for what they're doing. They're winning. They're trying to win championships. So
let me just say this. I think also too, I think the problem is that, as you mentioned, a lot of owners who just don't want to spend. They get their money and are just content. I think there has to be a salary floor to make them spend the money. Look, I mean, Minnesota has been notorious for this. The Pohlads family,
Pittsburgh too.
Pittsburgh also. I think there has to be at least a salary floor. I don't think necessarily a salary cap is a good idea, but I think they have to have at least a salary floor to spend. And look, we heard this all along. The Yankees, of course, notorious for spending, and whoever has the biggest payroll is usually, I don't want to say always, but it's usually when you're up there spending money, you get the and the Red Sox were accused of this too when they were winning some championships in the last decade, that they were buying championships. The Yankees of all teams, the Yankees accused the Red Sox of buying championships, which is kind of interesting. But look, I think it's also it's Dodger fatigue. They don't want to see them. I mean, it's like when Patriots kept winning, it's Patriots fatigue. I think it's Dodger fatigue as well. But I also think that people want to see other teams in there. And I think that, if Milwaukee can continue with its model, doing well and find a way to dethrone the Dodgers with their model, I think it'd be great for baseball. But also at the same time, I also think that there has to be some type of salary floor, not a salary cap, but a salary floor, making teams spend at least more money, at least so that they have a chance, like Pittsburgh and Minnesota and other teams that don't want to spend, the Oakland A's or the Sacramento A's or the Athletics, whatever they're calling themselves. They'll be called Las Vegas in a few years, but you've got to be able to spend money and not be like owners who just say, "Hey, look, I'm going to get concessions. I'm going to get the money, and I'm just if they get to the playoffs, fine, but I'm not going to spend anything and put any investment into the team because that's where you get fan apathy."
Absolutely. That's the problem with baseball. I think the fans' jealousy needs to be geared towards those types of owners, who are, who have owned the team for such a long time and have, settle for mediocrity. Like I said, the Chicago Cubs and Chicago White Sox owners, Minnesota owner, like you said, the Pohlads, the Pittsburgh, the Pirates, the Miami Marlins, the Tampa Bay. At least they've gotten, they're much more successful, but they've always had to, trade away, Blake Snell and other star players, for avoid arbitration or losing them in free agency and whatnot. Even the Boston Red Sox, did the same thing. They traded away Mookie Betts when they decided that he was too expensive. He goes to the Dodgers. He's won a title, and the San Diego Padres, they've gave up almost half of the minor league systems, and they were bounced in the wild card. Their manager, John Schilt, resigned after no longer be able to deal with it physically and mentally. So those are, there are some limitations, or at least even there are teams who are trying to win any means necessary. But again, the baseball finds themselves with a bunch of owners who are just littered with settling for mediocrity. So hopefully maybe the fans themselves can, direct their wrath towards, Rob Manfred and those types of owners, moving forward, because Dodgers are doing only what they're supposed to be doing, and that's to win championship. Again, any means necessary. So, we'll find out who will win the ALCS. Now it's, back to Toronto again. It's been an interesting series. Toronto dropped the first two. The Mariners dropped the first two at home. And then Mariners took Game 5 in a massive, massive way. Cal Raleigh with a tying home run, and then followed by Eugenio Suarez with a grand slam to push them one game closer. Ken, who do you have winning tonight?
I'm going to hope for a Game 7. I mean, up until the other night, Friday night, when Seattle managed to get a home win, it was the road team winning this series. Toronto really bullied the Seattle the Mariners in Game 3 and Game 4, and that really worried the fans because they were hoping for a big coronation, but Game 6 they were able to get Cal Raleigh off, and as you mentioned, a home run there, then a grand slam. But I'm going to say that now that the seal's been broken, I'm going to say that the home team wins again tonight. I'm going to say Toronto will win this, and if they win tonight, I think they win Game 7. But obviously, Seattle, they got Brian Wu come back in Game 6, and it looked like, and he had been out since September. He had not pitched the entire postseason. It looked for a while that Seattle's moves to take out pitchers early in Game 6 and also try to be a little bit more aggressive were not paying off. But then Cal Raleigh came in to save the day for the Mariners, and that led to the big grand slam, as you mentioned. But we'll see what happens tonight. Game 6 is going to be on FS1. Right opposite Sunday Night Football. So obviously the ratings aren't going to be very good for baseball, but an opportunity to have Game 7 tomorrow night against Monday Night Football, and I think that's on Fox. I have to check, but it will be a big opportunity for Seattle to get a big audience and the Toronto Blue Jays to get a big audience if they go to a Game 7 tomorrow night.
Would you give any of them a shot against the Dodgers?
Judging by the way that the pitching, I mean, I said earlier before when we did our predictions, I said the Dodger bullpen was like arson. They would light up the fire, but you know what? The Dodgers starting pitching has stabilized.
Right.
That's exactly
Roki Sasaki has done a great job as a closer.
Yeah,
too.
And Sasaki looks like he's now the closer. So I would have to say that now that the Dodgers starting pitcher stabilized, and now that you have Shohei Ohtani, and they're going to get a long layoff, that's going to cool off their bats. The World Series isn't going to start until this Friday.
Right.
That's a long, long time for a layoff, especially with the way the Dodgers were hitting. That's going to definitely cool off their bats. We've seen this effect happen with a lot of, like the Detroit Tigers. Remember a few years back, they were trying, it looked like they were going to go and win on the World Series, but then they lost all their momentum with the situation with the long layoff. The situation is going to happen with the Dodgers, but you know what? The one thing that won't have a layoff that's going to cool off is their starting pitching. So I think that their pitching is going to be whoever wins the World Series, whoever goes represents the American League. I still think the Dodgers are probably winning 5.
Yeah, I don't understand this format where you have to wait until Friday. To be honest with you, even if the game goes 7, which is tomorrow, they can still start the game on Thursday or whatnot, or even
Yeah,
Wednesday.
well, Fox doesn't want the World Series to go up against Sunday Night Football. That's one thing. That's why they started Game 1 Friday, Game 2 Saturday. They don't have to go up against Sunday Night Football.
Right.
They will go up against Monday Night Football in Game 3, but other than that, they wouldn't go up against football. So they're just trying to cut their losses, especially with the World Series. As we know, although baseball's ratings have gone up pretty much significantly this season.
Sure.
But Fox doesn't want to go up against Sunday Night Baseball with the World Series. That's why they're delaying it until this Friday.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's do a quick dive at the college football. More college football coaches are fired today. Billy Napier fired today, out officially as the head coach of Florida Gators. Jay Norvell fired with Colorado State, which don't know. I think there is one or a couple of more. Coaches who are probably on their way to being bounced, in my opinion. I think Mike Norvell of Florida State had a terrible game against Stanford. I think they clearly, overlooked Stanford on the West Coast. It was just a horrific game. Looked like he kind of knew his fate was pretty much done after the game as well. Hugh Freeze also suffered a terrible loss against Missouri at home. Brian Kelly lost to Vanderbilt in Vanderbilt, back-to-back losses now. I did not think Brian Kelly of all people would be a good fit in Southeastern Conference. Unfortunately,
Lincoln Riley too. Both of those guys are. I think they're going to be coaching for their lives next season because I don't think either of those schools want to cut bait yet. But I think Brian Kelly has shown to be totally miscast as an SEC coach. Lincoln Riley, who has been I've never liked Lincoln Riley, ever since he went to Oklahoma and then basically ran out on his kids going to USC. Here he is, and here's they lost last night to Notre Dame. A game which I don't think I'm not going to say they could have won that game, but they had a chance to get control of the game. They went up ahead, and they gave up a kickoff return, which basically ruined them. And then the weather played a big factor. You mentioned the weather today in Cleveland, the Midwest. They had a couple of plays that were definitely weather induced, a fumble and an interception. And that led to the downfall of USC. But Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly, they were hired before the NIL came about, and they're just showing that they haven't adjusted. They just don't know the transfer portal. They don't know how to use it, and we're seeing USC.
Same with Clemson with Dabo Swinney.
Swinney, exactly. But I think because he's won a couple of championships, he's got some cachet there. So I don't think he's going to get fired yet. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly. They'll probably be back next season. But I do think that they are coaching for their lives. And if something bad happens with them early next season or midway, if they lose big games, I wouldn't be surprised to see them get the hook. Because I've never liked Brian Kelly, even when he was at Notre Dame. Here's a guy that when there was an accident in Notre Dame, he really didn't act. He didn't really act the proper way. He just doesn't seem to be a coach who cares about his kids. He went down to LSU and tried to do a fake Southern accent by saying "my family." He's disingenuous.
He's disingenuous.
Those two people are snake oil salesmen, Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them out. But as far as the firings that happened today, Stephen, again, it's a situation where it's what have you done for me lately? We all know that college football has been this way, but even more so now with the NIL era and the transfer portal. If you don't win now, you're out. I wouldn't be surprised to see if maybe James Franklin gets a bite from one of these openings. I wouldn't be surprised, even though he hasn't won anything. But look, he's out there, and he's probably the biggest known name. And I wouldn't be. And Lane Kiffin supposedly I know Florida is supposedly interested in Lane Kiffin. Would he leave Mississippi? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But people like Chris Signetti are getting bites from the apple from maybe. But in order to prevent that, Indiana gave him a huge contract this week.
Yeah, they did.
So, I don't know. Well, you're only good until your last win in college football, we'll have to wait and see. But I wouldn't be surprised. Even I'm looking at Colorado. Would Deion Sanders be a candidate? Because he's after the first season, after all of the big hype, he hasn't really done anything, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't be surprised
without his son too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see if Colorado decided to just say, hey, look, you've been great for us, Deion, but you have a health situation. Take care of your health, and it's time for someone else to come in. So we'll see what happens. College football, I don't think we can be surprised with any news about someone being fired, Stephen.
Right. Even in the SEC, there's so many, with the Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and those schools, joining. There is a certain tier even within the SEC. The programs like you mentioned, Florida, Auburn, who has won championships not too long ago, are now struggling even, to be able to, keep up with the likes of Georgia, Texas, and Alabama's of the world. Now you have more teams you have to compete with. Florida and Auburn's of the world are like stuck in the middle. They're like in a deep competitive SECs. Their glory days might be fleeting. They're just basically trying to hold on to that glory years with Florida, when Urban Meyer was the head coach, and Tim Tebow was the quarterback. They won 2 titles. That seems like long time ago. The bottom feeders like Vanderbilt are making their way up. So is Missouri under Eli Drinkwitz, of course. So it's becoming more and more competitive now just to stay afloat, even in the SECs, and Florida and Auburn's of the world are finding it very, very difficult to stay afloat in the SECs, and this might lead to more coaches, like you said, being fired and forced into resignations. It's going to be a pretty wild finish to the end of the college football season, in my opinion. All right, Ken, let's talk about your very interesting experience. You went to see the MLS production, which obviously Apple TV has the sole exclusive rights to broadcast the MLS, which ended its regular season as of this week. Tell me, how did it came about, and what was the visit about?
Well, I got an invitation from MLS the last month or so, and they
really?
said, hey, would you like to come over and see our production and see what we do? Interestingly enough, they're located in the WWE studios in Stamford, Connecticut.
I drove there one time, I think.
Yeah, they first started there in New York, in the right off there, but they didn't have enough space. So last year they moved to the WWE. Actually, this year they moved to WWE studios, and you see in that picture, the closest to us is Kaylin Kyle. She's one of the co-hosts she's the host of their pregame show and the co-host of MLS 360, which is their Red Zone channel. When all the games are playing on Saturday, they'll cut in back and forth. Next to Kaylin, to her right, is Sasha Cleestan, and then to the right of them,
former soccer pro, yeah.
Yep, and then all three of these have played. Kaylin Kyle is a Canadian national player on the women's team, and then over there to the right is Bradley Wright Phillips from England.
Former England, yeah.
And then he also played, and he and Sasha played in New York. And then I'll see if I can get another. Let me see if I can get another. Yep, that's over there is Kevin Egan, who's leaning in. He's the host of MLS 360. You can see that this is a great.
Yes.
Yep. And he also played. He also was on WWE as well. But fantastic, a great experience for me to go there. I happened to see their. I watched a little bit of their coverage of Decision Day because yesterday was the last day of the regular season. The teams trying to vie for wild card playoff spots. We know that Philadelphia has already won the Shield for the regular season, but Chicago and Orlando were vying for wild card spots, and Chicago now will play a home game in the wild card series. Fantastic, really, to watch. It was their red zone, and they really know how to run things over there, Stephen. I was able to talk with Kaylin and a lot of their talent, and also on the Spanish side, they do have a Spanish production of MLS 360 that runs simultaneously. So it was great to watch, and MLS, which gave up all of their rights to Apple to run worldwide. When I was talking with Miguel Gallardo, a former goaltender with Orlando, we spoke a little bit about how he got into the position there. I was talking with the person who runs talent, and she said she did 500 interviews for all of the people. And what's interesting is, remember, Stephen, we talked with Mark Followell of on the AA team.
Like a year or so ago.
A couple of years ago, when we talked to him, and what's interesting, we asked him at the time when Apple took over. We asked him if he had been contacted by Apple to call MLS games. He now calls MLS games every week for Apple, and the person who hired him, I told her about this story, and I said, I talked with Mark Followell. She goes, well, what's great about that is that I worked with him at Pac-12 Network, and he was one of my first hires. I didn't even have to call him. I just said, look, I'm just going to bring you in because I know what you've done. I know you love to call soccer, and you call basketball. I know what you can do. So don't worry, I'll bring you in. So she said that it was an easy hire to bring him in. But talking to her about why she brought in like a Bradley Wright Phillips or a Kaylin Kyle, or in this case, Miguel Gallardo. He said, like, some of them haven't had experience ever in TV. Sasha Cleestand is now a seasoned pro. He's one of the best things that's on MLS 360, and Kaylin Kyle as well. They all have gelled together and make this great show, MLS 360. By the way, interestingly enough, today MLS and Apple announced that all playoff games going from now forward to the end of the year until the Apple Cup, MLS Cup. Why did they say Apple Cup? That's Washington State. But anyway, the MLS Cup will all be free. They will not be under the paywall of MLS Season Pass. So you don't need a subscription to watch the playoffs games, and they start this Wednesday. So we did want to mention that. So, but I have to say, great experience, great interviews. I'm going to be writing a story for Awful Announcing for that on my Substack as well. So look for that. But a really great experiences to go to Stamford, Connecticut. It was just like a 2.5-hour drive from my home in North Kingstown, Stephen, and be able to go there and just be able to sit there and watch the experience and get a tour of the facilities and see the studios. And what's interesting, Stephen, is that they're not talking about just 2 feeds of every game that go, and they produce everything from that studio. So if there's something that goes wrong, they can actually fix it from their studios, from their facilities at MLS Productions in Stamford, Connecticut. So, like, for instance, there was a game yesterday that's in San Jose. They were having an issue with the graphics, and they were having issues with the truck, but they fixed it there instead of having to worry about getting someone, and the game went on without a hitch. But, Stephen, what's interesting, not only do they have one single feed that goes out to Apple for English, but they're talking about multiple feeds. They're talking maybe 6 or 7 of one particular game, because not only do they have to do it in English and Spanish, but they also have to get it out to Korea, where they have an international partner. They also do Chinese feeds. They're also doing feeds for sponsors internationally. So you're talking about maybe 6 or 7 feeds of the same game, and all of them are managed in Stamford, Connecticut. So it's pretty interesting. I'll have all that coming up in an article this week in Awful Announcing and on my Substack. But just wanted to let you know it was a great experience, and there's something that a model that might be seen in the future for other leagues down the line, where everything is done centrally out of one location, and where, yes, they'll send production trucks to produce everything, but all the graphics and all of the everything else, all the elements and production elements are handled in-house in a central location, so they don't have to worry about getting graphics done by someone who's not familiar with MLS. It was great. It was really fantastic to watch.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of Apple TV, F1 announced its decision to sign a 5-year deal, I believe. Starting next year, it will be on Apple TV. This year, the race took place today, the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin. That was on ABC. Perhaps that might be the last time you're probably going to see F1 on like an American TV network. You know, ESPN had the rights for several years. I know there are some, questions with regards to, even with the MLS, with the Apple TV, that number may not be as accurate. And, it's becoming a little more and more difficult to watch sporting events. Now they're all transitioning into, streaming services, which unfortunately you're going to have to, sign up if you want to watch F1 starting in 2026, which obviously puts more burden on the customer's wallet there. Mm-hmm. Ken, your thoughts on the F1's decision with Apple TV today?
Well, let me first, under a piece of disclosure, I used to work for Apple in their retail department. I still do have favorable, even though they fired me, I still have some very, very favorable feelings towards them. I will say this: they're very slow in. They decided to go with first sports rights, with Major League Baseball, with getting the Friday Night Baseball package, then MLS a year later, and then they did discuss looking at NFL Sunday Ticket, which eventually decided to pass on and allow Google to take over. But as far as F1 is concerned, and this is something that talked to by Eddie Q, who is the head of services at Apple, he acknowledged that, yes, having a lot of streaming services out there and having people to sign up is not a good thing. He admitted that. But also at the same time, he said that, look, Apple wants to be the location where you get all of your sports. So they just announced this last week. They had a partnership to bundle Peacock for, I don't know what the price is, but something that I know with Peacock having the NBA just now, and they have going to start with the NBA this Tuesday, and the Olympics and the Super Bowl. Maybe that's a good thing for them to do. But I know that the price for Apple TV is $12.99 a month, and I know that with your Netflix and with Peacock and maybe Paramount Plus, which will have the UFC next year, that's going to be prohibited. That's understandable. But I think that the F1 the movie, which came out earlier this year, Stephen, Apple saw potential to get the rights for. Let's just make this clear: it is U.S. rights only. It's going to be on Sky Sports in the UK. It's still going to be on TSN in Canada. It'll still be on 7 Network out in Australia. So this doesn't affect worldwide rights. But, it's maybe something that maybe Apple might be interested in down the line. But Apple wants to be exclusive, and they didn't want to share this package. And they spent more than $40 million more than ESPN was willing to spend. Now, do people say, will they make money on it? Well, I don't think Apple has to worry about that because they're a $1 trillion company, so they're not going to be worried about that. But at the same time, I agree that having it behind a paywall is going to be difficult. But if you're a fan of F1, and it's been an increasing amount ever since Drive to Survive came out on Netflix, and Netflix was asked if they're interested in bidding for the rights. They were not. So we'll see. We don't know the viewership numbers for MLS. I tried to ask about that last night. They were very, very secretive about that because Apple doesn't like giving that out. But MLS says they're happy with the viewership numbers they're getting. Of course, Jimmy Haslam, who owns the Nashville franchise, felt differently about that. But Jimmy Haslam is a snake, even though he owns my Cleveland Browns. So I'm not really, whatever he says, I take with a grain of salt. But I say that I think, look, are there going to be fans are going to be angry that they're going to be turning on ESPN next year and not seeing the Grand Prix of Australia or the United States Grand Prix in Circuit of the Americas, which just signed a new contract for the next 12 years? Sure, I understand that. But, if you're an F1 fan, you're going to get it on Apple. You may get a very good experience because it's going to be different because ESPN, all they did was just take the Sky Sports feed. Apple may be a little bit more intuitive, and they've done a lot of stuff with MLS, improving the picture with 1080p, with 1080 XDR. So we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be interesting to watch and see what they're going to do. I know some people aren't very happy seeing Danica Patrick on Sky Sports' coverage of F1 because what has she ever done in F1? And I don't think she ever was she ever a championship driver in F1? No, she never drove in F1. So at least
or even in NASCAR and so forth.
And she won one race in IndyCar.
Indy too.
Yeah. So she never did really anything. So people are wondering why the heck is she on Sky Sports' coverage? So we'll have to wait and see on what they do. But I don't think you're going to be watching Sky Sports on Apple TV. They're also going to be incorporating the very popular F1 TV subscription service, which a lot of people like to watch. That'll be now folded into Apple TV's coverage as well. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what happens. But are they going to affect the viewership? Probably, because you're not going to get – they were getting like 1 million or 2 million people watching per race. But again, we don't know what Apple's TV figures are. They never released them. Even when I was with Apple, they never released it to us. So, but we'll have to wait and see. And we just have to wait and see to see what they have. Maybe what they announced for coverage will get people excited and have them subscribe to the service.
All right. Well, listen, Ken. On that note, we'll put a bow on this show. Another fantastic show. Thank you very much for 103 people joining us tonight on this very busy sports night, especially with the NFL Week 7 just closing out. A lot of parodies, a lot of scoring, parodies today. Now we're going to wait and see with the Atlanta-San Francisco game. Two more games Monday night. Detroit hosting Tampa. And then Seattle hosting Houston. Another double Monday night doubleheader. I know. I don't know. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it is what it is. So,
and not only that, we have at Seattle. What could be an interesting night in Seattle, Stephen, because if we go to a Game 7 of the ALCS tomorrow, Game 7 would be on Fox tomorrow at 8:00, and then you have the Seattle Seahawks game on ESPN at 10:00. So that'll be interesting if Seattle has that type of exciting doubleheader tomorrow night.
Sure. Ken, thank you very much for joining me once again tonight, and thank you as always. And look forward to speaking with you again next Sunday. Hopefully, same time, same place again.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen, and great to be on with you. And again, thank you to all the people who joined us, whether we were on X or through YouTube. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next week. Hopefully the football will be better than it was this week. Thankfully, we don't have an international game next week, but there will be a bunch of teams that'll have the bye. So let's just hope that we have more than 3 games that are one possession games. Hopefully, we'll have a very good witching hour on the Red Zone next week. And hopefully, Steven and I will be able to talk about some good football rather than the bad football that we watched this week. So thanks very much.